amfananta ka wanke a yin a rinka amfani da texas kai da kai haka a shawa da wahala wurin yin da zaran ka ga waɗannan alamu 0558-439-8680 emergency kan 112 manta a wanke hannaye da wani lokaci.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thanks for joining us here at the Ministry of Information for this midweek brief. This morning, our brief essentially is made up of various updates on Covid-19 pandemic and the response in Ghana specifically. I want to start by outlining what we will be doing, and then I'll invite my various colleagues who are here to help us with various parts of the brief. First, let me explain that we've had to reduce the number of media houses that are with us here in the press briefing center and in the overflow in observation of the social distancing protocols that we've been preaching. And we have agreed with colleagues in the media to pick the feed from platforms and to send in their questions onto those platforms so that their colleagues who are here can also carry those forms. And we want to thank the media for their cooperation. This morning, we will take a first update from the Minister for Local Government on the disinfection exercise that started in the Greater Accra region yesterday. The Honorable Minister, Haji Ali Mahama, will leave us right after that because this morning as well, the President is meeting the leaders of market women from the Greater Accra region and across the country. He will also be meeting a number of other groups that she has to be part of, all as part of this COVID-19 response. When she is done, we will revert to the Ghana Health Service to give us a case management update on the 27 reported cases as at last night. Dr. Bedusa Akodie, the head of public health, will join us with that update. Our borders, effective midnight Monday morning, were closed on the instructions of His Excellency the President. Mr. Frifa of the Ghana Immigration Service will give us an update on how that has been enforced, particularly on persons who are able to try to get in through various means since the closure of the borders. Also around that same time, we commenced the mandatory quarantine exercise. A little over 1,000 people are currently in mandatory quarantine. We have details on all that has transpired there, which we will share with you shortly. It will be done by the National Security Secretariat, whose officials are here with us. We have also been testing the persons in mandatory quarantine, and we have an update on that one and some consequential advisories that are delivered to all. The Ministry of Education has been doing some work in compliance with the President's instructions earlier. The Honorable Minister Matthew Poku Prempeh is here. He will give us an update on that one. We have an update on public education and an update in particular supply of PPEs to our health workers across the country. They are the frontline workers who would most likely come into contact with persons who have conditions and are reporting to health centers. We have an update on the supply of PPEs and the case management protocol to our health workers across the country, and the Director General of the Ghana Health Service will do that. So welcome. I want to start by inviting the Honorable Haji Ali Mahama, who will give a brief on the disinfection exercise and what will follow next from there.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Protocols observed. Minister for Information, thank you for the invite. The Minister of Local Government and Rural Development launched our sensitization program with our markets quite recently, and as part of the sensitization program, we met with the market queens, the market leads, and picked a date to start the exercise of fumigating our markets. The leadership agreed that the market in Greater Accra be disinfected on Monday, 23rd March. We are therefore tasked the MMDCEs to do profiling, zoning of markets in Greater Accra. 137 markets were identified and were all sprayed, fumigated yesterday. We are grateful to the market women who cooperated in this exercise, and as you are all aware, they complied with the request to stay out of markets. Most of them were all out of the markets. It was just in a few instances that we saw a few people, not for trading, but people who usually spend the nights there and they had to leave. But by and large, operated, and we are most grateful to them. Let me also say we are most grateful to the media. The media helped to raise the awareness. To raise the awareness, everybody knew markets were going to be and that the markets, the traders to stay out. And you are all part of the exercise, and I'm most grateful to you too as well. You are playing your role, so continue to support in this exercise. What next? Yesterday was mainly spraying and cleaning, some limited type cleaning, and a lot of rubbish was packed as you saw. And this morning at dawn, the exercise continued to clear the garbage. And I'm told, I haven't gone out yet. This morning, the exercise was to continue clearing the garbage, and they have done that. But the cleaning of the market is essential, especially a place like Aboloshe. You all saw that it's very dirty, especially the streets. And the Ghana is going to support in the cleaning of the streets of Aboloshe today. And they were supposed to start this. And we also asking the women to continue with this exercise with the support of their various district assemblies and the environmental sanitation unit. The environmental sanitation unit is a department of the district assemblies. They have skills in that. They know how to do this, they know how to support and train other people. So the environmental health sanitation unit to train other people so that this spraying will be done periodically. We would define when it will be done, the spraying and the cleaning of the markets. But we also entreat the women to take, women and men in the market, it's not only everyone in the market, those in the market, we entreat them to also play active role in cleaning their various areas. We have planned to continue the rest of the country. It's not only limited to Greater Accra. Our plan is to start in the Shelton region on Thursday, and we've come out with a schedule. I will eventually share the schedule with media so that you help us in raising the awareness. So for the next 1 week, we're targeting the rest of the country. There were concerns raised at whether the perishable items were affected. We ensured that all the traders covered their goods, especially the perishable items. And those of you who went to markets, you saw that in a few instances we saw some small, maybe a small tray of food here and there, and we collected all those things out. And definitely those things are not to be brought back to the market. So most of the food items were cleared. Some people are concerned about that, the efficacy of the chemicals that were used. What we used chlorine solution. I'm told that this is the WHO recommendation for spraying and killing of viruses, including coronavirus. So that's what we use. Chlorine solution at 0.5. The scientists know that to me. 0.5. That's what we use. So the plan, the cleaning up will continue. The infection, if there's a need, as I indicated, will continue the rest of the country. If there's a need after for us to repeat, we may have to do that. But hopefully, we are tackling this coronavirus issue, given it put the right attention where it's there. So my anticipation is that sooner or later we'll be out of the woods. I think I'm done. So thank you very much. Minister of Local Government, we are quite satisfied with this. We think it went on well. We started with Greater Accra. We couldn't just start the whole country once. So we started with Accra, and we are satisfied with the results we got yesterday. And we thank every single one of you for the cooperation we got. Even the shoppers, they cooperated because they didn't go around looking for food. So we appreciate everybody, and we are grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Haji Alima Muhammad, the Minister responsible for local government. She'll be leaving us because this morning the leaders of the market women are meeting His Excellency the President. She's a part of that meeting. Later, the President will be meeting the leadership of TUC on this matter, and then transport owners on the kind of support we can provide them also on this matter. Now, as at last night, the count was 27. I want to invite Dr. Medusa Akodie, who is the head of public health at the Ghana Service, to give us the case management report on 27 before we provide an update this morning.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I give this on behalf of the Ministry of Health and wish to indicate that the COVID-19 pandemic remains active and many more countries have reported cases. Globally, 177 countries and territories have reported cases, and as at 24th March today, 2020, total of 301,598 cases, including 16,559 deaths have been reported. Ghana confirmed the first case of COVID-19 on the 12th of March 2020. Since then, case incidence has risen sharply, and as at yesterday, because it's not concluded today and we would give the updates later in the day. As at 23rd March 2020, a total of 521 suspected cases have been tested for COVID-19 by Noguchi Memorial Institute of Research and Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, KCCR. Among the suspected cases, 27 have been confirmed positive. The country has recorded 2 deaths, and the rest of the 25 confirmed cases are receiving treatment in isolation. Of the confirmed cases, 20 of them are Ghanaian national. The majority of them returned home from various affected countries. 7 are of other nationals, namely Norway, Lebanon, China, France, and the United Kingdom. Contact tracing is ongoing, and as of 23rd March 2020, we have on a list 598 contacts that have been identified and are being tracked. 19 of the contacts have completed 14 days of mandatory follow-up, and one of the contacts developed symptoms and have been confirmed positive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Medusa Akodie. This is the update as at last night. As he mentioned, later this morning, we'll provide a further update based on some significant events that have taken place. Now, you would also recall, ladies and gentlemen, that essentially the President announced on Saturday a closure of Ghana's borders effective Monday morning. The Ghana Immigration Service has been literally policing our borders. I want to call Mr. FIFA, Deputy Controller General of the Ghana Immigration Service, to give us a quick update on the closure of the borders and the state of our borders as at now. Mr. FIFA, please join us with that very quick update. And then we'll talk about those who were put in mandatory quarantine.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Minister, we update you subsequent to our previous brief. As at 22nd midnight on Sunday, we closed country's borders, land, sea, and air. Border patrol officers have been deployed to man and seal off all unapproved routes. Restriction of entry and departure are being strictly enforced. The situation as it is that because of the closure or suspension of flights, the concentration is now on our borders. We have noted, especially along the Aflao border stretch from Aflao to Akan, various attempts by individuals, both foreigners and Ghanaians, to enter illegally. They have been intercepted by our border patrol personnel. On the 23rd, that was yesterday, the Akanu border patrol officers intercepted some Nigerians who had entered illegally. 3 males and 4 females. They were sent back across the border to Togo. Earlier on the 22nd, Aflao arrested an American who had also crossed over from Togo, we believe with collusion by officials across. It was noted that he had landed at the Lome airport on the 20th of March from the USA. So he was attempting to circumvent the suspension of flights. He was referred to the health officials, tested, and now proved negative, but he's under arrest and detention and is being sent into mandatory quarantine. Further detention on the action to take on him will be announced in consultation with the legal authorities. We have also noted that translators and the local communities in the Aflao area are aiding people to enter. 12 Okada drivers were arrested yesterday for attempting to smuggle persons across the border. They have been arrested, and we are discussing with the police how to prosecute them possibly. The Okada, the motorbikes have been impounded. From our Sogakope border, inland border post, persons have been intercepted. A Ghanaian, a doctor, who also flew in through Lome and entered illegally, was intercepted there. Check on his passport revealed that he had flown in through USA. Ethiopia Airlines continues to fly to Lome. So we are watching that border post very closely, because that is where we are seeing the tendency of persons moving through. And significantly, this Ghanaian is a medical doctor. We expect him to know better. The other 2 are Ivorians. They all hired vehicles from the Lao border and were moving to Accra. The drivers in the vehicles have also been arrested, and they are all being sent into mandatory quarantine. And thereafter, the issue of prosecution will be considered. From Lubu this morning, 21 persons have also been arrested attempting to enter illegally. 5 Ghanaians, 9 Beninoans, 3 Nigerians, a Mali, and 3 Ivorians. They have been sent back, but the Ghanaians have been retained and are being sent into mandatory quarantine. From our northern borders, totally shut. There have been attempts by Nigerians and Nabis to travel out of the country in buses. They have been stopped. Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, we want to send a word of caution to our border communities and the transporters. We are not in normal times. So the manner they have been operating in conspiring to smuggle people in and out of the country should cease. The border communities form a critical part of our border management strategy. We expect them at this time to cooperate with the security agencies. They should rather inform us of illegal entries rather than aiding them. When the coronavirus hits, it will hit them too, and it will start from them. We are also sending a word of caution to all persons out there that Ghana's borders are completely shut. Do not attempt to enter. You face arrest, detention, mandatory quarantine, and possible prosecution. Thank you, Your Excellency. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Controller General. And that point is clearly made, that on the instructions of His Excellency President, Ghana's borders are completely shut. If you attempt to breach it, you will be arrested and either sent back or dealt in accordance with law. Now, in the same announcement that His Excellency the President made, he also mentioned persons who are arriving within the Ghanaian jurisdiction between the time of announcement and midnight Sunday to Monday were going to be put into mandatory quarantine. We would like to take a quick update on what has happened, referring to how many persons were affected by that. What is the status of the mandatory quarantine, especially as we begin to see video, etc. on social media that makes the picture a bit blurred for many. Let me call on Obi Dixon, who will speak for National Security Secretariat that is handling this one. Obi, and since we are all touching the podium, etc., you may want to.
Honorable Minister, I thank you for the injunction, and I will do so presently. Honorable Minister, Minister of State here in gathered, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, as the Honorable Minister has put across, not too long ago, the President made certain directives clear to this country. Now, pursuant to those directives, the Ministry of National Security, the National Security Council Secretariat, and also the Ghana Health Service put together a team that has been putting into motion operation, codenamed Operation COVID-50. And so, pursuant to putting across such an operation, a number of issues have actually cropped up with it, largely very successful in the manner in which it has been handled, and also fraught with some of the issues that the Honorable Minister has here mentioned. But permit me first to just begin by giving you something that will be a roadmap or chart that gives you some clarity as to the manner in which the quarantine procedures have been effectuated, particularly under the option. And so this is how the walkthrough is, at least for those who seek to know how it actually unfolds. The first is that prior to arrival at KIA, Kotoko International Airport, the pilot informs passengers of government-imposed mandatory quarantine. Subsequent to that, the immigration officials board the aircraft that come onto our tarmac or arrive in Ghana to confirm if passengers have been rightly informed. Now, if they have not, they pass on information to passengers before their disembarkation. 3, at the arrival hall, port health officials are the first in line to meet these arriving passengers and conduct medical screening of the entire passengers that alight. Point number 4. Passengers then move to complete immigration formalities. Point 5. Whilst all this is going on, the airport announcements keep blaring and visiting repeated announcements of the need to observe social distances, just as we in this assembly here have observed some good social distance. Now, at that stage, the information on mandatory quarantine is again re-echoed to all passengers. Passengers move to the carousel thereafter to collect luggage and wait until they are called to board their buses. The passengers return back through immigration, port health, and then drop their luggage in a conveyor belt that leads to a waiting truck. Passengers proceed to a standby bus which takes them to the destination. Now, on board the bus, a designated official informs the passengers on the destination or the quarantine facility and takes questions from passengers. The exercise is sometimes done also at the destination hotel to avoid delays at the airport. You could imagine the number of arriving passengers that come. Now, point 8. On arrival at the quarantine facility, passengers disembark in a controlled manner. They disinfect their hands by either washing them or using hand sanitizers and proceed to check in. So, point 10, the attached guidelines or the guidelines that have actually been provided on mandatory quarantine are then put into their rooms. And that is for ease of reference and so for compliance by passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, currently the total number of quarantinees that we have actually successfully put into quarantine stands at 1,030. 1030 for emphasis. Now, there are few reactions that a number of you have seen perhaps on social media and other forms of communication. Abidjan, which are quite exacting, yes, but they are also of the essence of quarantining. Quarantining imposes a lot of strain and a lot of psychosocial issues on quarantinees. That is a fact to be reckoned, because as you would mostly have realized, these people actually embarked on a journey at a time at which the orders had not been put into effect. And so whilst they made they land or they told that this is a situation awaiting you. And so there's a natural inclination actually to be anxious, to show irritation, and to show some kind of stress. The information can be distressing. And so in pursuance of that, we have also gotten on board a number of psychologists. As I speak or as we meet here in this assembly, there are a number of them that are actually proceeding, visiting the various facilities around the place that we have quarantined. Now, Honorable Minister, we, on our part, the security agencies, do everything in our might to ensure that those in quarantine are reasonably comfortable. It's a duty thrust that we will execute well. However, we urge them to also be cooperative with the officials and with all those kinds of persons that come into contact with them that are in the nature of medics, in the nature of security, also psychologists, both in their own interest and also in the larger interest of our country. I think that is a very great obligation which they have. For now, we will accommodate all those things, persuade them to be able to come to terms with the period of quarantine. And that ends perhaps our formal brief to you. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. I've been advised to re-sanitize. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, you recall on Saturday, the 21st of March, the President of the Republic announced an enhancement of Ghana's response and included two items that we discussed: closure of the borders and then the mandatory quarantine. Now, the government is aware that the exercise is a bit uncomfortable for these 1,030 persons who entered Ghana's borders within that period. However, the measure has become necessary because in the days leading up to this mandatory quarantine, it became quite clear, as our index cases were being reported, that our biggest risk or our highest risk was from the importation of cases. Indeed, as at the time, you could tell that about 90% plus of the cases that were being recorded were from importations. That decision, as well as the decision to close our borders, was necessary so that we could arrest any further risks from imported cases. And the President did not take those decisions lightly at all. Now, as has just been mentioned to you, consequent to those orders, 1,030 people are mandatorily quarantined as we speak to you this morning. Now, please pay attention to this part a bit more. Respiratory residue samples have been taken from 611 of these persons. Even as we are speaking, they are going on with the picking of samples. Now, 185 of those samples have been processed. I want to invite the Minister responsible for health to give us an update on this, which will change our case count, and then some consequential instructions follow. Minister.
Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, out of the 185 test results received, we have 25 of those quarantined tested positive. If we add on to the earlier number of 27, it means we have 52 tested positive in our country at the moment. Those in quarantine, we have actually deployed psychologists to have chats with them. We have also, in the process of handing them over to our case management teams, we have set up. And they have started taking them to isolated centers for case management, meaning treatment. Definitely, not all of them will be critically ill, and they are not. Some might not be ill at all, but decisions on them will be on individual case management issue. If you are not even to be ill, you still have to be stay quarantined for the mandatory 14 days. Earlier on, we were getting indications like if you test negative, we release you after 4 days. But advice, technical advice, and we've met all the doctors, we cannot do that. So we'll have to keep you for the entire 2 weeks, which is the 14 days. We have adequate room in Accra, various centers, to actually take care of all those that have been tested positive at the moment. But going forward, team that is going around, identifying places that we can set aside for isolation for case management, not only in Accra. What we have identified so far is that we can describe 2 areas in Ghana now as our own epicenters, Accra and Tema together, and Kumasi. We are doing what we describe as contact tracing. In Accra, we have deployed 98 field officers, epidemiologists, and community health officers that have been trained doing the tracing. And it looks like we are actually leading in getting to people. In Kumasi, we have deployed about 50 trained people who are also doing contact tracing. The advice I will give now, by this evidence, is the fact that wherever we are, all those of our brothers and sisters who have come in, we should advise them to put themselves in self-quarantine if we haven't tracked them yet. And they should also be talking to health authorities in the area where they live to send teams to save them. They can be calling on telephone and describing their conditions to the health officers they get in touch with, such that we can protect the rest of the population against community spread, the horizontal spread we are seeing in our country at the moment. Mr. Minister for Information, I think this is what I can say for now, and we'll go quickly to continue tracing those that we need to trace and do the talk. We have to talk to those in quarantine and make sure that case management team are working very quickly to ensure that people fall severely ill before we get them to centers that we have dedicated for treatment. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you for that brief. Colleagues, just to reiterate some highlights of this part of our brief because it is very critical. The decision was to close the borders and to put into mandatory quarantine those who were coming within that period because it was becoming clear that our biggest risk was from importation. And just to go over those numbers, about 1,030 persons are currently mandatorily quarantined under the supervision of the National Security Secretariat, working in collaboration with the various agencies. Samples for 611 of them have been picked. Even as we speak, They are going through the process of picking those samples. Well, it takes about 25 to 30 minutes to complete the extraction of samples one person. So it takes a while. They've done about 611. They are still doing it. The first 185 that have gone through the PCR testing, 25 of them, that's about 14%, 13.5 to 14%. And that shows that this vertical risk is quite severe or was quite high, and that is why it has become necessary to take this measure. As the minister has mentioned, those who are positive are going to be moved to an isolation unit for treatment. The case managers, the clinicians, the Ghana Health Service, they are very much on top of that. And those who tested negative, if you have 13 more days to go or 12 more days to go, depending on when you came in, that will also be managed. We acknowledge that it is uncomfortable, but it is something we need to do for the greater public good. All support services needed to assure the comfort and medical support of the persons in quarantine, even at this time, is being stepped up by the state. We strongly advise persons in quarantine to cooperate with the security and health officials forcing the mandatory quarantine. It is in your own interest to do so. Even the mere interaction among yourselves puts you at severe risk. As uncomfortable as the situation may be, now is not the time to disregard the rules and attempt to disrupt the laid down protocols. Officials are doing their best to provide you with as much information and support as possible, but please cooperate with them so that you put yourselves and others at risk. We're also noting incidents of family members, etc., who sometimes want to come to these quarantine centers and want to find ways of getting in. It is in your own interest not to do so, because currently, even for the first cohort, about 14% of them have tested positive. It is in your own interest. Please cooperate with the protocols as have been outlined. Now, as a consensual measure, as the minister mentioned, all persons who enter the Ghanaian jurisdiction from the date of our first travel advisory, that's on the 15th of March 2020, and who are currently under self-isolation are to be mandatorily tested in the coming days. Our colleagues from Noguchi and KCCR are going through the necessary, bookings, and then they will start the mandatory testing of all of these persons who also came in within that period. And we'll provide some further information on that at this point in time. The minister responsible for education has also been acting on the president's instructions to ensure that schools and education are not disrupted, even though institutions may be physically closed down. I'll invite him shortly, but I want to quickly invite Dr. Patrick Abuaje of the Ghana Health Service to close up this medical part for us. Our doctors and our nurses are the frontline practitioners. They are the persons who most likely come into contact with any case that may show up there. And we continue to receive questions about their protection. The president keeps hitting on the fact that we must ensure they are all protected. Dr. Abuaje, please come up to the podium and give us an update of how you are ensuring that they are all protected. There are some who also say, in terms of the case management protocol, they want to have some more detail. If you can please respond to that. And then we wrap the medical part and go to education.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister for Information. Honourable Ministers, hearing at ladies and gentlemen of the press, I think I'm very happy to join you here. In all this challenge, one of the key things is the staff protection. Because apart from this challenge we are having to deal with cases that already have been there. Pregnant women will be there, people will be sick, malaria will be there. So two key things that we are taking care of is first is to staff protection, and secondly, to expand our capacity to be able to respond to the current challenge. As I mentioned last week, one of the things we are doing is we advise all health workers and facility managers to ensure triaging at the outpatients. So there's a pre-triaging where cases are selected to ensure that all respiratory cases are isolated and people are designated who see them, so that we do not only protect but also protect other patients who have come to the outpatients for care. To do that, PPEs have been provided. Currently, we have done more than 10,000 PPEs distributed. We are going to ramp it up to about 50,000 within a short time. And when you talk about PPEs, there's a package of a set. There are some that are needed more. And so some of them, for example, we have over 3,000 coveralls, which is the one that you see spraying people all over the place. You have the N95, which is a very highly, that spills out all kinds of, up to 95% of all debris and all viruses. But that's called an N95. We have more than 2,900 developed, distributed and more. With distributed goggles, we have face shields distributed, boots, among others, and we have more than 100,000 gloves of different types distributed. We are also ensuring that to build our capacity, all our staff who are currently on steady leave have been called back to come and join the force until the schools are open, so to keep our support. And we also know that retirees have been asked to come back, and doctors who are awaiting their financial clearance are also being asked to be recruited to participate in this exercise. The Ordinary Minister, the Minister of Health, has procured more beds to expand our capacity, bed mattresses, to look at that. We also have the training response team are trained across the whole region, and all regions are doing downstream training, including ambulance service staff and other people. Regions have identified treatment sites because this may not be in Accra and Kumasi, and so all regions have beds allocated. Should we have a case, this is where we have. Currently, we have about 545 beds allocated across the country, and it's expected that more will be identified. And as we get into the situation, we need more. The facilities will be asked to look at more. We may also look at other opportunities to create space to manage the cases. The treatment protocols has been asked, I can't take you through all that, but the most important thing, as happened over the world, is the fact that when you have these conditions, please call. When you have cough, fever, etc., that has of respiratory nature, don't get into a taxi and go. Just call the numbers there. Now the 112 is working. Somebody will get back to you and make sure they will direct you as to how you seek care. Either they come to you. So we don't want a situation where everybody's rushing to the facility, and in the process of getting there, you are distributing the cases. Mr. Minister, that's all I want to add. Thank you very much. Yes, we've also distributed more than, you see, I would say 10,000 sanitizers, but what you know is that facilities and hospitals are procuring a lot on their own. We have also given the regions the opportunity to procure additional PPEs out of the funds that we have given to them to protect staff, so that they can identify specifically what their facility needs are as far as their service providers. Because they may add that when we say frontline staff, includes the security men, outpatients, records, pharmacists, everybody who will, maybe I mentioned the pharmacists as well. Everybody who, by way, is part of the process of taking care of any patient who happen to be COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Dr. Patrick Abwaje, Director General of the Ghana Health Service. Now, schools may have been closed down, but education is being facilitated to continue through other means. The Minister for Education is here with us. He's been working with his team to ensure that education continues, even though schools may have been physically closed down. The Honorable Matthew Poku Prempeh will give us an update on what's happening in education.
Good morning. Thursday, the 12th of March, when we had our first confirmed cases, the President addressed the nation. And in that address, and the subsequent address on the Sunday, the 15th of March, the President announced the closure of all universities, high schools, basic schools, both public and private, beginning on the Monday, the 16th of March. It had become necessary to close schools because schools had had their index case. One of our institutions had had an index case. And as we speak, students of that institution are quarantined on the campus. That announcement, we still gave room for final year SHS students to continue in school, final year junior high students to continue in school because their exams were around the corner. Subsequently, the President charged us to ensure online programs to facilitate education continuing. In that time, UNESCO got in touch with us and started a facilitation arrangement so that Ghana could participate in online and traditional media broadcast so that education continues. Because UNESCO had realized that there's going to be a break in education for some time all around the world. In the meantime, West African Exams Council, the one who conducts our exams on our behalf, also announced the suspension of exams. So we had to bring the final year students back at home, meaning the WASI students or the SS3 students and the BE students were all asked to go back home. I must emphasize that the school's closure is a total closure, both public and private schools. The school's closure is a total closure of all schools within the country called Ghana, both private and public. Any head of institution that attempts to keep students in school does so at his or her own risk. If we care to know, all international exams, even in their parent countries, have been cancelled. And yesterday or 2 days ago, I got a message that the baccalaureate and the ICGCA levels, the organizers have all suspended those exams. So there is absolutely no reason for a school in Ghana to try to keep students in the school. In the meantime, a team had been tasked to ensure that we could continue education through traditional media, social media, online, and everything. In doing that, we needed two ministries, Ministry of Communication and Ministry of Information, so that we can engage the radio and the TV stations, as well as the telecommunication companies, to be able to deploy what we are attempting to do. We are in difficult and dangerous times, and everybody must chip in his or her best. This COVID virus needs human beings to move. If we stop moving, the virus also stops moving. Insofar as we move ourselves, we go into places to come into contact with others, we human beings transport those viruses to where we go. That is why we are maintaining the social distances, and that is why we are urging people that if it's not an essential travel, please stop. Because if you stop, the virus stops. If you move, the virus moves. The team that was constituted to come up with our immediate short-term, medium-term, and long-term plans, because we also have to recognize that this COVID virus is a game changer. How we manage ourselves, how we relate socially, and what we do has changed subsequently. As soon as the virus landed in Ghana, we should assume that everything has changed. In my ministry, we split the workforce into two, and we have asked half to come 1 week and half to come the next week. Why? Because we have to maintain social distances even in our offices, and have to find other means of engaging with our partners and our staff and our employees so that our movement doesn't aid the virus in moving. The team that we set up comprised people from Ministry of Education, the National Council for Tertiary Education, the Ghana Education Service, the Center for National Distance Learning and Open Schooling, the Ghana Library Authority, the Curriculum and Assessment Agents, all in a bid to ensure that whatever we come up with, every student in Ghana or every learner in Ghana can participate. The team was tasked to bring out solutions as well as conceptualizing effective and feasible solutions for the short term, medium term, and long term. They were to explore and ensure age-appropriate content resources for both pre-tertiary and tertiary institutions. Why do we say that? There are lots of content on open educational resources out there that is available but may not be appropriate. So we needed to guide what we broadcast to the Ghanaian students locally. So in the pre-tertiary space, we have the kindergartens, the lower primary, meaning primary 1, primary 3, the upper primary, primary 4 to primary 6, the junior high school, and the senior high school to contend with, as well as the universities, traditional, technical university, college of education, and general other tertiary institutions in the country. We were to ensure access for all, providing multiple platforms of content delivery. If we decide we are going to do only online, I'm sure we are going to take a chunk of our population who don't have access to internet out of the system. So we have to have programs that will play on TV, on radio, and online. And also explore collaborations, including especially non-state. So this team invited private sector players who had things to do that were relevant to education delivery. They all had a chance to come to the ministry, present to us what they had. And those that were immediately available and culturally and content-wise and age-wise relevant were chosen by the specialized team. They also have come out with a program to roll out this content. That program is very much dependent on collaboration between the Ministry of Information and the Ministry of Communication. We don't know that space that much, and we don't intend to know that in this immediate time. But we want the telecoms to zero-rate educational material, because some already do, like Vodafone. They zero-rate educational material, meaning that if you are onto an educational space on that data, it is virtually for free. So we hope that through the Ministry of Communication, we can all telco companies to zero-rate content delivery in education so that Ghanaian students can participate. We also hope that through the Ministry of Information, radio stations and TV stations will see the national agency in participating in their quota to ensure that educational content is delivered. We, like we said, some channels, some TV stations have told us that they have 24-hour channels they will turn them up for educational content. I need more. We did it on free-to-air broadcast so that everybody, everywhere in the country, as soon as a TV, you can get access to that. Likewise, we want to employ radio stations to help as much as they can. So we will broadcast when we start, periods in kindergarten, periods in lower primary, periods in upper primary, periods in junior high school and senior high school. The Center for Distance Learning Organization, CENDLOS, has developed an online program for all the core content in the senior high school ready to go. I've even given every senior high school student a password and access to an iCampus system, where on iCampus system we have notes with exercises, over 20,000 interactive quizzes, audio-visual lessons, including virtual laboratories, interactive lessons, and over 3,000 sets of notes and audio-visual resources from open educational resource. These materials are already available to every senior high school student who accesses with his password on iCampus, and is available for free. And this is the reason why we want the Ministry of Education to come in, so that you go to certain parts of the country, it's only predominantly one network that is there. So if we got all the networks buy into it and zero-rate it for us, we can be sure for all senior high school students, it is available for them. For the junior high school students, We have an institution that is already broadcasting in the junior high school and the upper primary area in parts of Eastern region and Volta region, has made their studios available for us to develop more content and also broadcast it. That group, Plan International, has 5 studios they've made available to us so that we can bring in teachers to help us deliver the core subject content area. Like I said, the collaborating state actors included Scholastic, Plan International, Edmondo, and development partners and other telecommunication networks that we have spoken to. In the tertiary space, we did invite some of the universities that were in close proximity to participate in the technical discussions. And we realized that almost all the traditional universities have functional learning management systems which may require upskill in order to make the service available to students. Almost all the 5 universities which are affiliating the 46 colleges of education have learning management systems they are deploying to affect all the colleges of education. Some of the universities with learning management systems available include University of Ghana, University of Professional Sciences, University of Health and Allied Sciences, University of Cape Coast, Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, University of Mines and Technology, University of Education, Winneba, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, University of Energy and Natural Resources, and University of Development Studies. All these universities I've mentioned have already started deploying their online system. Before the attack of COVID-19, and because of the numbers of free senior high school students that are coming out of the secondary system, we had engaged National Council for Tertiary Education, Open University UK. Open University UK is the #1 distance learning tertiary institution probably in the world, with over 60 years of history and licensed Open University education resources to over 70 nations around. Probably after Open University UK, the next institution will be Phoenix in the United States of America. Our discussion had gone very, very well. And as we speak, they have made a portal available for Ghanaian students through Ghanaian universities. So if you go to University of Ghana, University of Ghana has a suite of courses that they want to use Open University resources. That will be available to you, and that potentially would increase the population of our university students by over 30,000 and starting. And the more we get students to get on it, the lesser we have to pay. That technology is available, ready to be deployed, and it is one of the arsenals we have in our preparedness for the senior high school students to enter university. Eventually, after the medium term, now they are making it available to us at a cost though, but they think that with that partnership after 4 years, Ghana should be able to locally host Open University Ghana here to guard all our distance learning education in the country. The only problem with distance learning education all over the world is quality and an assurance that somebody is not doing something for somebody. And Open University UK have the resources to police that very well, and we want all our universities to have it for free. Government is going to acquire this technology and the technical ability and capacity for all universities in Ghana for free. The COVID, even though it's bad news, probably means that we should make faster this facility. We request, and we know we collaborate very well, all of our part of the COVID presidential team, and the Ministry of Information, which has been so supportive, and the Ministry of Education, that with their support, we have sent our ability to roll out to the Ministry of Finance. I know that we'll hear from them, supporting the Ministry of Communication, Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Information to deploy the online programs and the traditional social media programs to the whole country. Before I end, I would say that moving from medium to long term, we have a national digital literacy project that is going to allow a company to come into the country under 1D1F and establish a manufacturing base of smart tablets and mobile telephones and laptops in the country to ensure that every child and every teacher in the educational system gets access to ICT facilities, both as a subject course and as a tool to ensure better teaching and learning in the country in our attempt to make Ghana a learning nation and a knowledge nation. Like I said, we are going to also, in our bill to finance, ensure that we have a knowledge bank and an assessment bank, all in the cloud, and all our educational resources in the cloud, so that everybody in Ghana who wants to learn would have access to those materials for free through the knowledge and a cloud basis. I would like to end by saying something. We are in very difficult and dangerous times. And this is the only time when our collective survival, our individual survival depends upon our collective attitude and behavior going forward. Like I said, Mr. Minister for Fishing, the virus doesn't move. It needs me and you to move. And the only way we can stop this virus when we stop interacting unnecessarily. All interactions be very, very essential. If it's not essential, don't do it. If you don't have to travel from Malamata to Medina, please don't, because our collective survival depends upon individual behavior. And we hope Ghanaians can take that measure. Like I said, one of my institutions had an index case, and we have quarantined over 200 people in that institution. This is the time various agencies and unions and bodies should understand that in emergency times, there's nothing like mine. It is ours. Government will have access to every resource to prevent COVID-19 from destroying us. If that resource includes a university, we would have it. If that resource includes a hostel, we would have it. Any resource available that is available to Education Ministry is available to Ghanaians, and it will be used in the defense of our fight against the COVID virus. The second thing I'd like to say that agencies and NGOs and CSOs have started writing to Education Ministry and ever making a case. We do thank them for their collaboration, but we all are in it together and need everybody to support government efforts in these times. Schools are closed, private and public. They are all closed. And all students should be at home maintaining social distances protocols so that we all survive. And I must say that we in education are taking the National Day of Fasting and Prayer seriously. We hope that tomorrow we will all as a country rally around this particular thing. And I urge all students and lecturers and teachers to fast and pray so that this thing passes us and passes us quickly. I hope the media organizations here too will participate in the National Day of Prayer. And at least your programming will reflect our reflective period and what Ghana is going through. Thank you. Thank you. So, grab a bonfire.
Honorable Minister for Education, thank you for that update on the education sector. Just to refresh our notes on what we've done so far. We've taken an update on what's happened in our markets, in the greater Accra markets, about 137 markets yesterday. We've taken an update on the case management report as at last night, which was about 27 cases as at that time. Then we have taken an update on the closure of our borders, including persons who have been arrested for attempting to breach the closure. We have also gotten an update on those in mandatory quarantine from National Security Secretariat. And then the Minister responsible for health has given us a very important update on those in mandatory quarantine whose tests have come in, about 85 of them. And it tells us that about 14% of those who were put in mandatory quarantine from the airport and other jurisdictional entry points, Saturday and Sunday, about 14% of them are being captured in this bracket. So the vertical transmission risk, which we're hoping to cut, the numbers are beginning to show, and we continue to ask them to cooperate with us. The Honorable Minister of Education has just given us an update on the measures that are taken in education, and we have about 2 or 3 more things to do before we wrap up and take questions. One is on the public education update. that the Pius and Amhajida will quickly give us on what's happening with public education, and then some general notes that government wants to share with the population, and we'll take your questions. Honorable Pius.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Good morning, Honorable Ministers, colleagues. The Information Services Department of the Ministry of Information has started the public education campaign on COVID-19 in general and the enhanced hygiene practices of hand washing and social distancing in particular, together with key stakeholders and partners such as the Risk Communication and Social Mobilizing Team of the Ghana Health Service, decentralized and other agencies on the ground in the various metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies. The strategy involves the deployment of public announcement vans and commentators and announcers drawn from the ISD, poster and sticker campaign, use of the community information centers, the deployment of big vans with digital screens, and also engagement with special interest groups, but conforming with the presidential directions on social gathering and social distancing. We have engaged with other agencies and institutions such as the NCCE, the Church of Pentecost, and others on constituting an even large pool of resources, including vehicles and personnel, for this all-important assignment. We are grateful to them and all of our partners and stakeholders, such as the USAID Breakthrough Action, the TOL, Casapreco Company Limited, and all others who have offered exhibition samples on hand washing and related matters for their nationalism and their kind assistance. We asked for the continued support and cooperation of all. Honorable Minister, we also report that informations have been deployed on mass media across the country in 7 of our local languages, radio, television, and online at this time. We are grateful to the media and we encourage them to keep to the commitment that we arrived at our strategy meeting of dedicating more airtime to COVID-19 information and discussion. Honorable Minister, robocalls and other internet-based communication tools are also being deployed. We are grateful to the country's telephonic companies and internet providers for their assistance. The Information Services Department has received materials needed, that is audio and visual materials, leaflets, and other printed materials, trained our information officers and other assets. We have also formed the street-based information teams headed by the DIOs and assisted by the heads of the other decentralized agencies such as the MOFA, such as the Ghana Education Service, and so on, to assist in the information dissemination. But these teams are under the overall supervision of the Metropolitan, Municipal, and District Chief Executives. We believe that now that all these have been put in place, information about COVID-19 is reaching all the nooks and crannies of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Pius. Let me make some concluding remarks, and then colleagues would invite you to ask your questions. We've also received a lot of questions from your colleagues in the press pool who couldn't join us because of the social distancing and have sent their questions in. So, Mr. Obieji, I would ask you to get those questions as well. Please take note that the case count rise should be expected. As explained, the general theory is that before you flatten the curve, you're going to have a rise, and then as all your measures work, you begin to bring down and then flatten the curve. So we continue to encourage Ghanaians, do not panic, rather spend your time and your energy helping us to share the messages on the preventive etiquette. It's better to spend your time doing things to prevent it than to panic. So don't panic, spread calm, spread information, spread knowledge so that we can all protect ourselves. We also repeat the caution to those in particular who seek to smuggle people into the jurisdiction now that borders are closed, or those who want to aid a disregard the rules, for example, for quarantine and other things that have been put out there. Those who want to disrupt attention and focus at this point with all sorts of gimmicks, and those who want to pretend that our collective survival is at stake. It's important to join us in this exercise to focus on the necessary protocols that have been put out there so that we can all succeed together. Government is taking all the humanly possible measures based on the fact and the advice from the experts. But as the President mentioned, we are a nation that believes in God as well. It's not as though we are substituting what must be done for prayer and fasting. As I'm sure you heard us say and report to you, a lot is being done substantively. But even our national anthem starts with God bless our homeland Ghana. It's the first word in the national anthem. So we're a nation that believes in God as well. And that's why His Excellency the President has mentioned, the Vice President has repeated, my colleague the Honorable Matthew Prempe has just mentioned it. Wednesday, tomorrow, it's a national day to fast and pray that the Lord will bless our efforts with success. And we want to encourage all of us to take it as seriously as possible. We thank all the stakeholders, media, Ghana Medical Association, nurses and midwives, frontline health workers, frontline security workers. We thank all of you, and we ask everybody to rally behind the red, gold, green with a star in the middle at point in time. There's a microphone that I would ask to be brought to the front. Please don't touch the microphone. Just put out your question, and the ones that we can have responses to, we will take those responses. Now, Professor Ampofo from Noguchi is here. This morning on the front page of the graphic newspaper, there's a story that says that Noguchi is calling for a lockdown. I do know that the head of Noguchi has spoken to him and has asked him to make a clarification of that. So maybe I'll quickly give him the first word and then ask about general preparedness for some extensive testing, especially of those who have come into the country, even from the first arbitrary. How prepared are they to ramp up their testing? And then we'll take the rest of the questions. Prof, to the microphone, please. No, I mean, please come this way. You come this way.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to set the record straight. Professor Anand, Director of Noguchi, was not speaking on, was making remarks which were misquoted. The institute, the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, has not officially presented a viewpoint to the government of Ghana. Actually, the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research and other members of the Ghana Arts and Academy for Sciences have presented a position paper to government with some recommendations for consideration. So the headline is totally misleading. It was comments that a discussion with a news reporter which have been taken out of text. With regards to testing, the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research and Kumasi Center for Tropical Medicine Research are using a molecular method for the detection of SARS-CoV-2, and we will continue to use this method to test respiratory samples to detect current infection with the virus. Let me make this clear. We are using a molecular method for the direct detection of the virus in respiratory samples to be able to determine that people are infected with the virus. The position of government at this moment is not to use a rapid test, which only shows that being exposed to the antibody and does not present a definitive indication of being infected. I hope that makes it clear. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good time to take your questions now. Please give me a wave. We'll invite a microphone and then we can take your questions. Unless you say that our brief has been so extensive that there are no questions today, then I'll go to the platform. Could you have a question? Please come behind the microphone quickly. We don't want to waste too much time. Any other questions? Those in the overflow, yeah, please. So take two at a time. Yes, sir. Kojo, let's be quick.
My name is Kojo from CDTV. Very insightful analysis here. But cases, and this morning it seems some of them were not attended to. They were still agitating who will come to their aid. You briefly touched on that, but if you can assure them that officers are on standby because they are feeling very, very agitated.
Okay. Those on the quarantine.
Well, I'm Benjamin Akwa. I'm with the Class Media Group, Class 91.3 FM. Two quick questions. The first one has to do with retired healthcare professionals, specifically doctors, who are being roped in to, shore up the system. When are they coming on board? And have we taken stock of the fact in Italy, for example, there are many of those casualties, doctors, who have come out of retirement, and we know that this sickness affects the immune system. They are old, some of them have health complications. How are we protecting them from making the ultimate sacrifice? And point number two, we were told in recent times that in addition to Noguchi and KCCR,
yeah,
we're going to have two more centers.
Who's saying this?
Well, I heard this on a media platform. I don't want to mention.
It will be good to be specific, so because there's a lot of stories that fly around this time. So it will be good to be specific. Okay.
So is that true? First of all, are we having these coming on board?
Are we creating 2 new labs?
Yes, that's basically what I'm asking. 2 new laboratories to help with testing and all of that, in addition to the KCCR and of course Noguchi. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take 2 more questions. Yes, sir. Are there any other questions in the auditorium before I move to the questions on the text platform? Okay, sir, let me hear your question.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Selom Aminya. I work with TV3. So my first question is that we have seen that when the president decided to shut the airport and also the borders, we were able to mandatorily quarantine 1,030 people.
Yeah.
So what is preventing government from locking down the Greater Accra region and also the Ashanti region? That's the first thing. And also I want to know the disbursement of the resources. Are they going to send them as soon as possible to the regional hospitals? Because all regional hospitals are going to be equipped in order to stop the spread.
You mean the PPEs?
The PPEs.
If I can get your question clearly. You want to know whether the PPEs will go to the regional level?
Yes, whether they've started disbursing it to the regional.
Okay, I think Ghana Health Services said that, yeah, he has. So I'll strike that out. Let me take some questions on the text platform, then I'll come back to you later. For example, I would kindly ask you to stand by to address the question of any extra labs on the horizon. And then Ghana Health Service, I'd ask you to speak to the question about the retired doctors who we are contemplating bringing in to help out. Ms. Obeje.
There are reports that hotels are being used as isolation centers. How true is this report and what informed this decision? Another question is, who is the second person to have died? How are the bodies of the deceased being buried? Are they being given to their families? With the cases which brought our initial number to 27, were they community infections or reported cases? Thank you.
Those are the questions on the platform. Okay, so Dr. Bedisa Akode, please stand by to speak out. In the first 27 cases, the split between, if any, community spread and importation. Then, though we are not able to put out names of even persons who've contracted it or persons who have died, I think the substantive question is about, are there any special burial arrangements that are being made for these 2 persons? As was done in the case of Ebola, etc., there are special burial arrangements. Do any of those apply here? Let me quickly deal with the rest before I invite my colleagues. Yes, a number of hotels are being used as are being used as quarantine centers or quarantine centers. And please let's know the difference. When we say a quarantine center, it is where a number of persons are put for observation. Now you need proper cubicled places that are properly cubicled, so that in terms of interaction with other persons and body fluids, etc., these persons are properly cubicled, have access to single unit sanitary conditions on their own. For that purpose, what is readily available to use for this 1,030 persons were a number of hotels. The state has commandeered a number of hotels and is using for these purposes. These hotels are not accessible to the general public. Military and police persons are there. We particularly speak to family members because while these persons can communicate with you and tell you where they are, we don't encourage you to go there and seek to interact with them or seek give them food. It is not in your own interest even so to do. Please let the health workers and the experts handle the situation as at now, because even as at this morning, you are seeing the kind of results that is coming from the testing. Is government considering a lockdown? Let me say that all options are on the table. All options are on the table. Government continues to receive advice which is subjected to analysis by the experts. And let me take you back a little bit. In these times, you would understand that there's a lot of agitation and commentary and suggestions from voters. But we must trust the process and allow the experts to advise the decision makers to make a good decision. In the very beginning, there was a lot of agitation, fly the students in China and bring them back home. The experts advised that it was not a thing to do. Though that decision at the time it was made appeared a bit unpopular, events in following weeks have proven that experts got it right and the decision makers got it right by taking the advice of the experts. There's a lot of talk, a lot of agitation, lockdown, because we are seeing it on TV, etc., and other places. Different jurisdictions have different dynamics when it comes to even food supply or essential service supply, etc. So the decision to lock down or not is not one that is taken lightly or because we've seen other persons doing it. The experts continue to provide the advice to the decision makers. His Excellency the President sits down at 6 p.m. every evening with the COVID-19 response team made up of experts from all over and give that advice. It's subjected to interrogation. He doesn't take those decisions lightly. So all options are on the table, but at this stage, the advice and the consideration is to go in accordance with the measures that we have gone with, and it is bearing fruit. We ask that if anybody has views and ideas, particularly from the medical community, security committee, etc., your colleagues are at the table, your superiors are at the table, please channel them through all of them so that it can be brought to bear on the discussions that are being taken. But no, at this point in time, there's no decision to lock down. All options remain on the table. The President has said that if at any point in time he has to exit his measures, he will do so. And if anybody has, or any group has some researched propositions that they want to share to help the decision makers, we're happy to receive it. For those under quarantine, as we've mentioned here, we do understand that it is uncomfortable when you are not in incarceration and you are not ill. As the health minister mentioned, you are not showing physical signs of sickness and you are under quarantine. It can be frustrating. But we encourage that you bear with us so that those who are handling the testing and the necessary protocols are able to do them in your own interest. Professor Ampofu, are we scaling up labs? Dr. Abu, please stand by. Retired doctors and nurses, how are we protecting them?
With regards to laboratory testing, because we're using molecular platforms, we've identified current locations in Ghana where these molecular platforms exist. So we have molecular platforms at the Veterinary Services Directorate. We also have molecular platforms at the Public Health Reference Lab in Accra and also in Tamale. We're looking to expand the current capacity to these other locations, and we hope that this will come on stream soon. Let me explain a little about our reluctance to use the antibody rapid test now. Know that this is a new infection. So we do not have Ghanaians who have had this infection before. Let me take you to HIV. For HIV, we use rapid antibody tests because we are able to evaluate these before they are registered and used in Ghana. It's very simple. You take 100 positive samples, you take 100 negative samples, and you're able to calculate the sensitivity and specificity of these tests by just doing a simple evaluation on these existing samples. I do not have Ghanaians who are positive blood for the new coronavirus. So if you ask me to use a rapid antibody test, I cannot tell you its sensitivity and its specificity. We'll end up having a lot of false negatives and a lot of false positives. So at this time, we will stick with the molecular test, which will tell us whether somebody actually has the virus or not. I hope this makes it clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Ghana Health Service.
Thank you very much. I thought Prof would answer the additional labs, but he's conveniently dodged. Yes, there are 2 more labs that they're going to create, expand our capacity at the Tamale and the whole teaching hospital one to be able to test for COVID-19. So that's what we're doing. That should come in within the next week or 2. They should be ready to be able to do that. The doctors, the retired doctors, how are we protecting them? I think with the protection system of PPEs and training, it's going to go for all. Most of them are probably not going to be on the forefront, but there are many aspects of this response. Guidance, surveillance, etc., are all part of the work they'll be doing. So most mites are likely to be in that area to be able to support. And some also, of course, will be in case management. I think Dr. Sakwe answered the issue of barrier.
Thank you very much. With the issue of barrier, I wish to indicate that all Ghanaians require dignified barrier, and as much as possible. The specific point that you have to take into consideration for now is how the various barrier activities bring people together to just impede on the social distancing measures that have been in place. Unlike Ebola, where we had to be put zip bags and body bags, this is not. This spreads by coughing and as much as possible and body surfaces. So what we have to take, how we bath the dead, if we need to do, we have to be adequately protected. So the things that we need to do is to prevent direct. Then it's unlike that of Ebola, where you have to put in specific zip bags and the country has to take over the barrier.
But just to be also clear, these directives on how to handle the dead is also being shared with the morgues, etc., so that if you have cases, they are clear on how they will handle it.
That's thanks. And then the issue on just summarize it. And
out of the 27.
Yes, out of the 27. To say that you have a community spread would mean that there is a case who imported case. All the cases are being investigated and we have it point. But we are aware that some of the cases, they are not imported, but they're